Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Beth Ann. Today I am doing my February wrap-up. I am just squeezing it in before the end of March here, so feeling pretty good about that, sure. And this one's going to be a pretty quick one. I actually only read 5 books in the month of February. So let's dive into it. So the first book I finished in February is Sisters of the Raven by Barbara Hambly. This is book 1 in a duology. I think the second book is called Circle of the Moon, something like that. And I read this with Margaret Pinard and her book club, which she hosts through her Patreon. So I will link to her channel down below. And if you want to join us, we read a book every other month. Any genre, and Margaret tries to pick things that have been out for a few years, so there's a higher probability of being able to find them at your used bookstore or your local library. So I did just pick this up off of used books, thrift books, thriftbooks.com. So yeah, so head on over there if you want to join us. It's a lot of fun. And Sisters of the Raven. This is an adult fantasy. It was written in the early 2000s, published in the early 2000s, and it has a pretty cool premise. It's set in a desert nation that for a long time has relied on magic to solve its problems and provide quick fixes, and only the men have been able to do magic for the entirety of the existence of history, I guess, in this world. So it's a very patriarchal society. And in the opening of this book, we're starting to have some serious breakdowns. So first of all, the climate is really suffering. The rains have not been coming. And so we're having a real climate change effect. And of course, that's very important in the desert where water is scarce. And then the male mages and wizards are losing their magic, and nobody knows why. And women are starting to have magical powers. And so I thought that was pretty cool, like a challenge to the ruling classes, an upsetting of the traditional way that a society is set up, the climate change angle. So there's a lot to really like about this book. And I did really enjoy it. I think I gave it 4 stars. But then there's also a lot to rip apart about this book. So there are a lot of sort of side plots and things that don't really go anywhere. And I don't really have any idea. I haven't read the second book yet. I am planning to, but no idea or indication whether they'll be resolved. Some of them just fizzled out, sort of like in the middle of this book, like a little plot thing would be happening, or sort of a thematic setup that you think will be involved in like the overarching thing. And then after a couple 100 pages, it just hasn't been mentioned in a while and it's not going anywhere. And then the resolution of the book had nothing to do with that. So there were just a lot of like false trails, but they weren't, there was never like an moment of, I was led in the wrong direction and like this is why, but there was a big reveal. Like it was never satisfying. And then something that that Margaret articulated is there's a lot of characters that serve the same function. So there's a lot of like the old sort of losing his mind because he's losing his power wizard. Of course, there's a lot of them, but there are like 3 that are, sort of built up as characters, and they're essentially all the same person. And so it got sort of unconvincing as we were going through the book to have the 3 potential bad guys, 3 of the big ones anyway, there's a lot of potential bad guys, be just completely identical. It was like, what was the point? And so that sort of thing happened for a couple different types of like more minor characters. So yeah, so I'm really glad I read it. I actually did like the writing overall. I liked it better in the beginning of the book, but that's really typical of fantasy, that things sort of feel like they're getting sloppy towards the end. So I tend to not mind that as much. But yeah, I was pretty engrossed in it. There were definitely, big swaths of it where I didn't want to put it down. So definitely a really engaging read. Like I said, I really liked the premise. So yeah, solid read. Okay, then the second book I finished in February was on audio, and that was Amy Poehler's memoir, I guess, Yes Please, which is definitely a lot of autobiography. It's a lot of how she got to where she is in her career. And it was funny, but the thing with like reading books written by comedians is it's just a lot packed into a book. Like they're funny. Like I find Amy Poehler hilarious, but I find her hilarious in the context of a 25-minute sitcom or an SNL skit. You know, like I think I need smaller doses of my comedians. So yeah, so parts of the book did have me tearing up, parts of the book did have me laughing out loud. But it was, you know, it was a lot. So yeah, and that's sort of, like I said, that's sort of how I feel about memoirs and things by comedians. But anyway, if you're familiar with Amy Poehler, you know what this book would be like. It's just her humor throughout it. So it was enjoyable. All right, the third book I finished was Seed Among the Thorns by Morgan Lee, who is a indie author, and she is active on YouTube as an author tuber. And I read this book as part of the Black Author Tuber Readathon. It was a buddy read I did with Shannon SD Houston, who is also an indie author on AuthorTube. And so we had a whole hour-long conversation about what we thought about that book, so I will link it down below. But just quickly, Seed Among the Thorns is a dark fantasy. The main characters are teenagers, but it didn't really feel YA to me. There's a little bit of romance going on, and of course it's teenagers in a little bit of romance, so like that part sort of felt YA because you do get exposed to that more sort of immature side of them. But overall, yeah, I just, it didn't read as completely YA to me, so I'm still like sort of struggling with what genre it's in. But yeah, dark fantasy. It's about sort of a like cosmic warfare between three gods who've sort of split up their dominion on Earth. One of the gods, Cornelius, has charge of Earth. A prison world has been created, Regnum, and one of the gods, Demetrius, has been banished into that, and Cornelius is sending all of the misfits on Earth, who are, of course, the most interesting people. The giants and the fairies and the shapeshifters are all getting put into this prison world with Demetrius, and Demetrius has been setting himself up for a cosmic reckoning and building an army and laying long plans. And then the main characters who we're actually following are two teenagers who whose families have been, you know, plotting and scheming for a couple hundred years and are putting it all on the shoulders of these two teenagers to sort of step into their destiny and save the world. And the teenagers are like, well, what if we don't want to? Especially one of them is like, I just want to live my life. So yeah, so that was definitely enjoyable. There were some pacing issues. So this is a self-published book, so I think it could have used just a little bit more like high-level editing. I mean, like, you know, zoomed out view of just like where the plot is and where it's going and all of that. It did, you know, like hang together. So it doesn't have any of those issues, but it did have some pacing issues. And I think the book could have been split into, it's not that long. But it with the amount of stuff that's covered, I feel like it could have been slowed down and split into some different books. But yeah, it was exciting. It felt very novel and original. And the author is currently working on book 2 and what's a planned trilogy. So I found it a very solid read, and I'm definitely going to read the second book when it comes out. Okay, and I will put links to everything related to that book below. Okay, and then Magic Marks the Spot is the fourth book I finished in February. This was also on audio. It's by Carlson, who is a graduate of my alma mater, Swarthmore College. Yay! And it was utterly delightful. It is definitely like a sort of middle grade book, I guess, and just an adventurous romp, very British, I guess. I don't know. It's just, like, it was delightful. So we have a young girl, Hillary, who is the only daughter of an admiral in a fictional fantastical world where magic is housed in objects. And so if you possess a magical object, you are able to tap into the magic of that object to do, you know, whatever you want, to affect change in the world around you. But magical objects have been disappearing from the world because an enchantress who existed 100 years or so before the start of this novel actually squirreled away all of the magic into her hoard, and she wanted to take it away from the world because she thought it wasn't a good influence in the world, and then she disappeared. But so there's a hoard of magical treasure somewhere, and the rest of the magical objects are basically in the high caste aristocratic families. And at the beginning of the book, those objects have started disappearing as well. They are being stolen. So there's sort of that broader conflict going on. And then Hillary herself is a precocious, adventurous, 12-year-old, I think, who just wants to be a pirate. And she's been brought up in this aristocratic family, so everyone around her is like, no, you're a lady. You're going to go to finishing school. So the book is all about how does Hillary try to live her dream as a pirate, and it is hilarious. And she is accompanied in all of her adventures by a gargoyle that she took off of her family's house, which is the magical object that the admiral's family has as an aristocratic family. And so the gargoyle is sentient, and he's hilarious and eats spiders and likes to have his head scratched and doesn't want his magic to be used because he just wants to curl up in a bag and nap. A little bit crotchety. So yeah, they just go on adventures. It's hilarious. I highly recommend it. Yeah, I just loved it. I bought it's a trilogy, I think, so I bought all 3 of the books so that I can read them to my daughter when she's a little bit older. Yes, absolutely amazing. Okay, and then the final book that I read is a BookTube prize book, so I'm actually not going to say anything about it. I'm just going to note that I finished it in February, which is Brickmakers by Selva Almada. I am reading in the first round in the translated fiction category, I think it was Group C. So this was the first BookTube prize read book that I finished, and I'm on track. I've finished almost all the rest of them. I have just 100 pages or so left in my last one, so I will be on track to finish by Wednesday of this week. But yeah, so if this book has crossed your radar and you'd be interested in hearing what I think about it in just a few days after I've submitted my rankings, then definitely stick around. All right, so that was my reading in the month of February. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.